Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. These podcasts are brought to you in part by our sponsors who really truly are what make these podcasts possible every week. O'Fallon Nutrition is a company that I've worked with for over 15 years. They're independently owned and operated, located here in O'Fallon, Missouri, right off of Highway K and Mexico Road. I call this place the Whole Foods of St. Charles County, but even if you are not located on this side of the river, it is still worth the drive. I can remember working all the way down at Powerhouse and still sending people out to O'Fallon Nutrition for their supplements. They are more than a supplement company. You can get grass-fed beef, salad dressing, seasoning for your cooking, hair care products, makeup, deodorant, toothpaste, essential oils, and all the vitamins and minerals that you can think of. If you're looking for clean, whole food nutrition, as well as home care, house care, skincare products, O'Fallon Nutrition is your place. You can take a look at them at o'fallonnutrition.com, or if you'd like to have something shipped, if you're listening to me from outside of St. Louis, you can certainly have items shipped. I know they do free shipping if it's an order over $50, and the phone number is 636-240-5283. Again, it's o'fallonnutrition.com. As well as if preparing your food on a weekly basis is your primary excuse for why you're not able to stay on a good, clean eating program, which is something that I hear very regularly from my clients, I would ask you to please take the time to check out Pure Plates. It's pureplatesstl.com. They are a phenomenal place. We get our food from there during the week. They deliver to our Integrity location. They will deliver to your house. They also are just available for pickup. You can go to their Chesterfield location or their Kirkwood location and just pick up meals for the day, as well as just having them delivered right to your door. So if preparing your food is your main excuse for why you cannot stay on a healthy eating program, then I would suggest just stop by Pure Plates. Just try it. If you're trying to lower your blood pressure, you're trying to lower your cholesterol, you're trying to get your blood sugar down, try to do Pure Plates meals for a week and just see how different you feel. These are organic meals. They are gluten-free. If you need them to be, they can be dairy-free. They are soy-free. You're not taking any processed sugars or meat-curing agents or preservatives. They really, truly believe in nutrient-dense meals that are just whole food nutrition. And I've had my clients, or I've made recommendations for my clients for years at Pure Plates. It's pureplatesstl.com, or you can call them to ask questions at 636-778-3555. Again, remembering that they have a location in Chesterfield as well as in Kirkwood that you can just run by and pick up a meal today. Everyone always asks me where I get my meat from, and given that I really eat meat on a daily basis, typically beef primarily, my meat is very important to me. I have an autoimmune condition and I want grain-free, corn-free meat, and I just haven't found the confidence in stores in knowing that I'm getting 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And I have searched and searched and searched for the right farm, and I have found the farm. It's fedfromthefarm.com, fed, F-E-D, from thefarm.com. These farmers are amazing. It's a family. They're here in Missouri, and they have the desire, just like I do, to see people well and to see people healthy, and they put a lot into what they do. It's such a wonderful family to support. They do offer 100% grass-finished, grass-fed, meaning that's it. A beef, and I get my ribeyes, I get my ground beef, my ground sirloin, I get my chuck roast. I mean, they basically have everything. They even have awesome jerky, but they also have eggs, they have chickens, and they have turkey. I'm planning on getting a turkey for Thanksgiving, and if you'd like lamb, they have that as well. But if you are in need of good quality grass-fed, grass-finished beef, or quality eggs, chicken, turkey, don't just settle for what you're getting at the local store. to go out on the internet and check out Fed from the Farm. That you can arrange a pickup or you can have it delivered to your home. And I can guarantee you're going to taste the difference. For me, my health actually depends on it. So I really thank God to have found such a great farmer. Fedfromthefarm.com. I hope it blesses you.
Welcome to Faith, Fuel, and Fitness, the Integrity Way, with your hosts, John and Debbie Morris from Integrity Training Systems.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is John and Debbie Morris with Integrity Training Systems on Real Talk 93.3. We're happy to be here with you today. Always open our show by talking to you about what it means to be a warrior. If you're new with us today, I just want you to understand that the definition of a warrior is a brave or experienced soldier or fighter, and there's a lot of ors in there. And the reason I think that's important is because a lot of people say, well, I'm not a soldier. I'm literally not in the military, and I'm not very brave, so I'm probably not a warrior. But the other side of those words is that you are experienced and you are a fighter. And I really don't know anybody short of perhaps a perfectly born, no problem infant that hasn't fought through something which ultimately gives them experience. You know, it's like everybody's got a testimony because everybody's been tested. And so if you're going through something and you think you can't overcome it, I challenge you to just take a step back and breathe and think, okay, I've had to overcome something before. And at some time in my life, I've engaged in the most difficult thing that I've ever had to overcome, and you overcame it. So even if what you're dealing with right now is the toughest thing you've ever dealt with, if you acknowledge you've already done that before, maybe you're on the next level, but you have to go into it thinking, I can overcome this as well. So we always like to just talk about things that Debbie and I or clients that we deal with are going through, because you're not alone. Nobody is alone out there. There's nothing new under the sun, is something my preacher always says. It's like the Bible talks about the problems. I think we think there's more new under the sun now because of the internet and the news, but it's all been going on. So whatever it is that you're going through, someone has gone through it or is going through it as well. And so instead of being like, oh gosh, that means all of us are going to have to deal with this terrible thing, find some solace in that and understand that that means that it's going to be able to be overcome by you as well. So, Deb, do you have anything that you want to talk on that today? If not, what I was kind of thinking is talking a little bit about entrepreneurship, or even just anything that you engage in that you might think that you stand alone on. I know that you and I have talked about we've been wronged by people, and I guess that this would apply, obviously, to more than just business, but being wronged by someone before and just thinking like, man, these are the people that we've done the most for, that you thought would be with you the longest, that really had your back, and it surprises you. It's like, these are the people that leave and they talk behind your back, or they run their mouths, or, they try to steal from you or take business from you. And then the people that you've done far less for are who actually stick around and have your back. And you can kind of get lonely in that. You've talked about that before, where it's like, wow, I kind of feel like the Lone Ranger on this. But then you talk to another business person, and that person's like, yeah, no, my brother literally tried to steal my company from me, and you're like, what? And it's like, yeah, my brother and my two best friends, I've known them since I was 3 years old. They worked for me and with me, and they basically got to a point where they weren't happy with me being the owner, even though I tried to reward them as much as I can, and they attempted to take my business from me. And it's like, you're not happy that happens to someone else, but you are kind of like, okay, then I'm not alone on this. And I feel like that, like I said, it kind of transcends business, and ultimately you may find that in life. You were listening to Andy Frisella yesterday, and he was even talking about like, friends and family, and he said, haters, but he was like, if you're saying you have haters because someone talks negatively about you on Instagram, that's not a hater. A hater tries to stab you, steal from you, kill your dog, etc., right? Like, he was pretty fired up about it. But it's like, he was saying that it's even people you care about. These are the people that ultimately end up having the biggest effect on you, because you actually do care about their opinions. And so when they turn on you, it just hurts that much more.
I think it's like centering yourself around the right thing, having a schedule for your day that isn't relying upon social media, isn't scrolling, and isn't relying upon pleasing other people, and truly just relying upon pleasing God, basically. But yeah, I think like for me, it is a Lone Ranger walk. I mean, and I'm married and I actually work with my business partner. But there's been plenty of times that I've felt alienated and just completely alone because I know I have information that I don't necessarily want to share with everybody.
Yeah.
As I don't really want everyone to take on the burden of that information, because I want them to be able to rise above and stay positive and stay happy and not have to take on that weight. But I believe when you listen to someone else, which was the reason why I spent my entire weekend listening to Andy Frisella, probably like 10 hours of it.
Yeah.
When you listen to somebody else and you see how they deal with it, or you see that they've overcome it, or you see this is completely normal for them, you feel less and less alienated, and you almost actually feel like you're sort of part of something else.
Yes.
You're part of something greater. You're okay. I'm actually just part of that group. I'm not the Lone Ranger. We're all riding on the same, prairie here.
Nothing great has ever come without trial, or nothing great has ever come without pain or pressure. And it's like, I always love the argument, well, what about winning the lottery? Well, you know what? When you win the lottery, a lot of times that doesn't end positively. A lot of times, I mean, every story I've read, I don't know of many highly successful lottery winners because they go out and they're not prepared for the load that has been put on them. Friends and family come out of the woodwork needing money. They buy a $6 million house, not realizing it's $1 million a year to upkeep. They buy, 10 cars that they don't even realize they have to pay $5 million in sales tax on. And it's like they get in over their head because they haven't had to fight through that. Andy talks about sleeping in his store, making $50,000 in a decade, right? It's like, they haven't had to do that. So when they actually have money, they're just, they blow it where, instead you're trying to figure out where, what time of the day you can eat a $1 sandwich from McDonald's, right? Because you're only going to get one today, And so it's like, when you think about that, when you start thinking like, man, I'm really alone on this deal. I was reading a book. I haven't finished it yet. I actually need to get back to it. I took a little bit of a hiatus
on that for sure.
It's called Gamification. And the guy talks about, it's a video game comparison to life, but he talks about like being idle and why are you being idle in the game? Like if you're going to hop around town, like that's a waste of time in this video game. And he compares it to real life. And what he says is if you're just scrolling Instagram all day, if you're just scrolling like Twitter all day, if you're just scrolling, and he's not talking about recreation, he's not talking about 10 minutes before bed to watch funny dog videos and then go to sleep. He's talking about hours, right? He's like, what aren't you doing? What aren't you getting better at? Should you be seeking out someone who's dealing with the same thing you're dealing with? The Bible calls that like-minded individuals so that you can actually become better at what it is you're trying to overcome.
Right.
Iron sharpens iron, exactly. So it's like if you were just sitting around thinking, well, this is just too difficult, I can't overcome this, I better put 3 hours into watching something on Instagram, like you might be right. You might not be able to overcome it because you're not applying yourself. I believe that the Bible calls us to action. God is capable of opening the sky and raining on you without you doing anything, but it's like I believe in showing up. He asks us to pray. Like there's a reason for that. He knows what we need. He knows exactly what we need. But he asks us to pray. Like, I'm not going to sit on my couch and ask God to give me money and then work 3 hours for the week. Like, I'm going to go get a job, and I'm not saying that that's just easy to walk out and do, but I'm going to seek that. I'm going to search for that. I'm going to pray for the work, and so I just think that if you're finding yourself in a position that you don't feel like you can push through or you can overcome, seek out that assistance. Seek out those people that can help with you. Surround yourself with other people that are having to go through the same thing or have gone through the same thing.
Absolutely. I don't think you have to go at it alone. I think that there are, plenty of resources out there if you are struggling, no matter what the area of life that you're struggling in. And, for me, putting, a message on like that, I mean, it just gets my mind off of the loop of maybe something I shouldn't be cycling on, and it prepares myself, my thinking to maybe be focusing on something I should be, focusing on, and something that's going to actually drive us towards success instead of just the, a loop of how I'm going to figure this out, or how am I going to accomplish this, or how, or are we going to fail? And I think that is a constant loop that a person can get into for sure. For more information on what we do at Integrity Training Systems, take a look at integritytrainingsystems.com or give us a call at 636-299-2208. For gluten-free, dairy-free baked goods delivered to your door from my personal bakery, take a look at sophiesbakery.com. And for 100% grass-fed meat, the only meat that the Morris family will eat, take a look at fedfromthefarm.com.
She fears no evil and holding her ground. She is a warrior, ain't nothing gonna slow her down. She is a warrior, she's taking this battleground. She is a fighter, a crier, she ain't gonna lose this round. She is a warrior,
Welcome back, everybody. This is John and Debbie Morris with Integrity Training Systems on Real Talk 93.3. We just got done talking to you about what it means to be a warrior, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the sensitive spots today, the things that people refuse to admit are a problem, the things that people are going to be like, I better turn this segment off because there's a burning in my heart. Well, that's conviction, by the way, and it's difficult for everybody. It's difficult for me. I mean, people always tell me, like, but I love food. I can't give it up. You don't understand. It's like, I had a heart attack because I was fat. That's not my words. That's the doctor that woke me up. He said, you had a heart attack because you're fat. That was his words. Like, you don't get that way because you don't like food. Okay. But I found this guy. It actually popped up on Instagram. And then I went and listened to the whole, his whole message on this. It's about 45 minutes long. He's just a YouTuber. He's got like a PhD in, I think, like, finance or something, but his name is Myron Golden, and I thought he was a preacher based off of this Instagram video, but he's not. And what he says is Satan's secret weapon. He says of mass destruction, but I changed that to mass distraction, is food. Satan's secret weapon, I'm going to say that again, of mass distraction is food. And he goes into saying,
say that all the time.
He goes into saying the first temptation of the world was food.
Right.
Adam and Eve. The very first temptation was a shiny apple that presented knowledge of good and evil. And Eve fell for it. Here's the best part, okay? Eve fell for the food, and what did she do? She had Adam eat it afterwards. So it's like, not only did she fall for the food, but she shared the fallen food with her friend or with her partner, okay? And it's interesting because on this Instagram short, it's like 30 seconds, it's super powerful. There's literally someone who says, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. It wasn't food that was the temptation, it was disobedience. But here's the thing, you're not wrong. It was disobedience, but the catalyst was food. And so the catalyst to a lot of people's problems, a lot of failure, a lot of fog, a lot of fatigue, a lot of not being able to actually pursue what God has for you set out in your life can come through food. And it's so socially acceptable. It's so interesting. He continues, the first temptation of Christ was food. Even Jesus, his first temptation, he's been fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. He's probably ready to eat, okay? And he says, here comes the serpent slithering in. Hey, I bet you're hungry. Why don't you turn those rocks into bread? You know you can do it. It's not that big of a deal. Who really even knows that you're out here doing that? Go ahead and eat the bread. And what does God do? He hits him with scripture and knocks him back. Well, wouldn't that be nice if someone shows up and says, oh, it's just one drink? Are you serious? You can't have one piece of pizza? People are terrified to tell those people no. Hit them with some scripture. You know, it's like, see what happens with that. The next thing he goes into, and I had never even thought of this one, is the children of Israel being slaves for 400 years. Read about that, okay? They literally went in search of salt, and I'm going to get this wrong. We would have to look it up, but something else. And God was providing manna for them. God literally said, you will not starve. Bam, here's your food. And they start crying and murmuring. Oh, if only we had pots of meat. If only we had salt. If only we had this. They're provided for. They're not even starving. And so what's fascinating, again, in these comment sections, I love it. People are like, maybe you should read your Bible. It's not just about this. It's about, and they're defending the food. They're defending the murmuring. And one of them says, you know, Adam and Eve weren't even hungry because they were taken care of. And these people weren't even hungry because they were taken care of. So it's not about the food. It's about the disobedience. And I love it because someone hits underneath it. He goes, I think if we really stop to think about why people eat food, it's not actually about hunger. If they're eating bad food or consuming something they should have, it's not actually about hunger. Well, but I crave it. Yeah, but craving and hunger are two different things. Hunger is your body's requirement for sustenance to actually continue through the day and have the energy to complete the task at hand. Jocko Willink talks about being in war, which find me something harder than war, and not eating for 2 or 3 days at a time. Okay? That's hunger. Your craving, that's feeding the flesh.
Yeah, I have people that will say, I'm just so bored with eating those foods.
Bingo.
And I'm always like, you're bored with eating vegetables? You're bored with eating fish? You're
Yes.
bored with eating meat? You're
Yes.
bored with eating nuts? You're bored with eating olive oil? You're
Yes.
bored with eating fruit? Well, what do you want to eat? Like, what
Something
is
that
there?
you're told not to.
What's there left to eat?
And that's the disobedience. That's the comment
cheese,
section.
Pizza,
Yeah.
crackers, just food that doesn't even feed you or fuel
Yeah.
you. And so it's like, it doesn't, you don't want to determine if you're bored or not.
Yeah.
The food is there to fuel you. Make it taste great. Make what you can eat taste great.
Yes.
So that it fuels you to feel amazing, but quit worrying about your feelings.
Well, and then there, you'll get the, but I just want to live a little. Well, how about living a little longer?
Yeah.
It's like, go ahead and live a little bit longer at the end of your life because
But
you're not
you can't
putting chemicals
also
in your body.
you can't also complain about how you look. You can't also complain about how you feel. You can't also, complain about the medication that you have to take. You have to just decide,
Yeah, the last point that Myron makes
But it's
is
a stronghold that's on people.
that food has been used to kill more people in the history of the world than anything else.
Right.
If you compare it to anything else, chemical warfare, war itself, food's kill count is higher. Yeah. And when you actually add up the disease that gets created by food, I think that starts to go up more exponentially. The last point I want to make in this specific point, we're going to actually continue to talk a little bit more about this as we move into the next segment in a couple of minutes. But the last point I want to make on this is when you think about dying and you think about coming to the end of your life, and we're going to talk about moderation in the next segment, like, everything's okay in moderation, like it's just a little bit of poison. It's just a little bit of chemicals. It's just a little bit of that. Listen, I'm all for enjoying something on a birthday or a holiday, but like, be smart about what you're enjoying. Be smart about what you're doing. Be smart about the nutrients and what you're being attacked by, because most Americans, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this, most Americans, and I'm going to say it to us as a country. Now, we can apply this to the rest of the world, but I have a spirit that says I need to say this to you guys that are listening right now. Most Americans dig their graves with a knife and a fork. It's not a shovel. It's not even their friends or family that are going to dig the grave for them. It's not the guy at the actual cemetery. It's you. And so if you're eating the food that's creating disease, if you're eating the food that's robbing you of your energy, if you're eating the food that, if you're anything like me, makes you a psycho and go crazy and messes with your neurology, then you are digging your grave with a knife and a fork.
For more information about what we do at Integrity Training Systems for a 6-month nutrition program or for a visit with a personal trainer, take a look at integritytrainingsystems.com or give us a call at 636-299-2208. For gluten-free, dairy-free baked goods delivered to your door from my personal bakery to you, take a look at sophiesbakery.com. And for 100% grass-fed beef, the only meat that the Morris family will eat, take a look at fedfromthefarm.com.
We were made to be courageous. We were made to lead the way. We could be the generation that finally breaks the chains. We were made to be courageous. We were made to be courageous. We were warriors on the
Welcome back, everybody. This is John and Debbie Morris with Integrity Training Systems on Real Talk 93.3. We've just been kind of going into me getting on a little bit of a soapbox about, what we're called to do and how we're called to consume. And Deb, I want to pass the beginning of this segment a little bit more about you. You actually did a post recently, and this was one of the things that kind of added to me needing to talk about this today. And I'm going to talk a little bit later on about my struggles with this food here recently, even personally, and how when I talk about not walking alone, know that you're not alone. Here I am trying to preach and I'm fighting the same fight. But you talked about the size of grocery stores changing, okay, and how obviously we're thankful for these grocery stores. You're thankful for Deerbergs, which is where we go. It's huge now. But you talked about the why. And the why they're changing is because the supply and choice of food changing. And I said on break that if you're consuming something that has more flesh-fulfilled flavor and calories than it has caloric content through the form of nutrients, what are you consuming it for? The Bible says, when you consume food and or drink, do so unto the Lord. I mean, who are you feeding when you're feeding just flavor and color and chemicals and MSGs? And I want you to talk just a little bit about, in the last 30 or 40 years, the change in disease and what even in your 20 plus years of doing this, you've watched. It's at one point you worked with people losing weight and bodybuilders, right? And now you're known as the autoimmune specialist. It's what is that? Where's this all coming from?
Yeah, I think I also had a post that's was a quote by Eric Thomas that said, fast to starve the flesh.
I literally wrote that down.
And I really liked that because, what he's trying to tell this group of athletes that are trying to take things to an exceptional level is he's saying, you're so caught up in what you want. You're so caught up in feeding your flesh and making everything, so satisfying for you that you're not realizing that you're underperforming because of what you're consuming.
Yes.
And the reality is that we're all doing that. And it's not to try to oppress anybody or to condemn anybody. It's just to open the door. And at the end of my post, I said, listen, the whole point of this message is to help you to understand that food can be a stronghold. It can become an idol. You can rely on it so heavily for your fleshly desires, but the problem is that you're underperforming in all areas of your life. You're going to underperform as a spouse. You're going to underperform as a boss. You're going to underperform as an employee. You're going to underperform as a mother, as a father, as a child, being obedient to your parents. You're just simply going to underperform. And you're most importantly going to underperform on the call that you have to God and being able to hear from the Holy Spirit and really being able to live out his will for your life. And so the point of that message, starving the flesh just by fasting, and that can just simply be fasting gummy bears, fasting ice cream,
right?
Fasting
doesn't mean you have to actually
cheese,
consume nothing.
Fasting bread. It doesn't mean you suddenly go on a fast and you don't eat for 2 days. It
Right.
can just mean I know that this food has control over me. I'm making this narrative in my mind that I'm okay. I can eat this. Look at me. I'm okay. But at the end of the day, deep down you're not okay. You don't feel okay. You're not acting okay. And it cycles and it catches up and it compounds. And you might be okay for a day. You might be okay for 3 days. but you're not okay for 5, and you're not okay for 10, and you're not okay for 15. And the next thing you know it, you end up with a disease. And that disease could be an autoimmune condition. It could be psoriasis. It could be eczema. It could be leaky gut. It could be ulcerative colitis. It could be allergies. It could be depression, anxiety, bipolar issues. The reason why our grocery stores are bigger, as I was a kid, I'm 49 now. When I was a kid, we walked in, you had produce, you had a meat section, you had a bread section, you had a milk section. That was about it. You didn't have all these boxes and all these packages. We are marketing to a person's fleshly desire. We're fueling that flesh. And in that same notion, at that same exact time, what we're unfortunately doing is like killing everybody with that food. And so when we say shop the outer part of the grocery store, that's what the grocery store used to be. And yes, so many of the diseases that we have now, so many of the diseases are truly coming from food. Our daughter changed her food. We've talked about it on the show. In both households now, she has not experienced eczema in probably 9 months since changing her food. She pointed it out. Do you know I haven't had any eczema? Eczema is just the body's way of trying to communicate. Any skin issue is the body's way of trying to communicate that the liver is unhappy, that the gut is unhappy. When you have an imbalanced brain, it means you have an imbalanced gut. It means you have digestive issues. It means that you have an imbalance in what you're eating, and you need to get that back into balance. So it's hard to do. Starving your flesh is hard to do because it can take control over you. But what I'm telling you is if there is a food that you are no longer in control of, and you find yourself repetitively just almost defending yourself. I've had plenty of conversations with my clients. I've even had these conversations with John because he was my client, where I will have to delicately go to that client or delicately go to my spouse and say, do you think you should add cheese every day because you know how it makes you feel? Or I'll say to a client, are you sure it's a great idea to bring in sugar every weekend? I would love for you to be able to do that, but doesn't it seem like it sends you into a tailspin? And then the whole rest of the week, you end up cycling in all these bad foods. Unfortunately, at that point, that person is so knee deep into those foods that they're almost overcome by it. And also their chemistry has been changed because of it. So it is not going to be an easy shift. It's not going to be, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and not eat that ever again, because you're going to wake up tomorrow and want it more than you've ever wanted it in your life. That's why you come to a professional, because I would have John do the diet cheese for 3 days. And then we would try to not do cheese for 3 days. But I'd add another fat onto his meal so that he wasn't missing the macro, but he was just missing that food. If it was a sugar issue, then I would start coupling other types of nutrients into that person's day to try to bridge the gap from me removing that sugar. But then I'll put all these other things into place so it's not such a hard stop. It's not such a hard reaction and you feel like someone's ripped an opiate out of your body and you're now going through a complete withdrawal. So there's a benefit to working with a professional on that. And it's not an easy thing. And it's okay to like admit weakness and to say, hey, I'm struggling with this. You know, this food is on my mind all the time.
Well, and sometimes it goes deeper than just making a decision. It's deeper than the psychology of it. You might have a legitimate addiction.
Yes.
I mean, it is an addiction and it is chemically embedded inside of you. You might need a doctor on board. You might have to meet with Debbie and have her tell you how to eat, but then bring a doctor in so that you're taking the proper medication to remove you from it, no different than coming off of heroin. But the reason, like Debbie said, we're not coming at you on this. We're coming with you on this. I am currently on a journey. I am probably in the best shape of my life. I mean, I was a cage fighter. I was in law enforcement. I've done jiu-jitsu competitions. I'm arguably in the best shape I've ever been in from a body fat perspective, from an athleticism perspective. I've been doing training in all of my combat gear. It's about 50 pounds of gear, not including my firearms. And people have been asking me, like, what are you training for? And I say Civil War II, World War III, or zombie apocalypse. And they kind of laugh. And I'm like, yeah, it's funny till it's not. But no, I'm just kidding. It's like I'm training hard. People are literally taking note of it. I'm not trying to talk to people about it. They're watching it. And so what has happened to me is my body has started craving some of these foods because I am a retired fat kid. And I say that jokingly, but I'm someone who used to eat because I love food. And I say I retired from it because I've moved on from it. But the problem is physically, I'm in such a place right now that I can get away with eating foods and it not affect my body or my athleticism. And I had somebody, why? That's what I said, body or athleticism. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like I had somebody I listened to on Instagram, and they said that calorie in, calorie out determines your weight. You can lose weight by being in a deficit. You will gain weight by being in a surplus. Macronutrients determine how you look. You're trying to get chiseled. You're trying to look buffer. You're trying to look leaner. Macronutrients get you there. Micronutrients are going to be what actually fuels you and makes you feel well. Well, I'm bipolar. So if what I'm consuming is more macro or calorie based and less micro based, and I start consuming, like I said at the beginning of the segment, for flavor over function, I'm going to get a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And that's been happening a little bit lately because I would say once or twice a week for about a month now, I've been consuming something I shouldn't. I, find myself walking out of a gas station with an energy drink. I hadn't drank those for a year to almost 2 years. And it's like, so I am having the same conversation with you guys that I have with myself. And the turning point for me was I felt a burning in my heart. I've been kind of feeling a nagging. I got something earlier or later last week that I shouldn't have had. I actually had a Quick Trip donut, on Thursday of last week. It's like I don't even remember the last time I ate one of those. And so yesterday I go to our church, and a friend of ours approaches us and tells us that their sibling is in the hospital right now with 10% heart function. They've been checked in and it's not good. Like the doctors are coming together because they don't even know what they're going to do in this situation. And our friend said, I just wanted to let you know that her brother had functioned at 30% heart rate for years, with the doctor, is actually why she had him come to us, 30%. And so the doctors were looking back at all of the charted records of his heart since he's in there right now at this 10%. And the doctor said, well, this is unusual. This kind of sticks out. This is weird. There's a period of time after being 30% for about a year that he went from 30% to 50% before falling to 10. And it doesn't make sense. Like once you're at 30%, you should not be able to go up. And she said, I just want to let you know that that's when he was with you guys. He was eating what you were telling him to eat, and he was exercising, and he actually improved his heart from 30% to 50%, but then he fell off. He decided, to kind of revert to some of his ways, and he's such an amazing man, but he just reverted. The world around him helped him to revert back to his previous ways. And so what the doctor said was miraculous and didn't make sense, this 20% increase had now reduced by 40%, and now he's fighting for his life. And it hit me even harder, like, man, what am I doing? How blessed am I that I'm in a position that physically I'm okay, but I've been a little edgier. I've been a little bit more going back to the anxiety that I can feel where I don't feel like going around people. I've felt the depression a little bit deeper where I don't really feel like leaving my house and I just want to retreat and hide in my bedroom or hide in my home. And it's like, if you're experiencing any of this, guys, ask yourself, what am I eating for? Like, what am I feeding? And if you're finding that you're eating these foods that are bad for you, these processed foods, this garbage, this stuff that you're chasing after just wanting to quote unquote live a little and that you deserve a little bit in moderation, ask yourself if it's worth the anxiety, the depression, the skin issues, the health issues, and potentially shortening your life.
Yeah, and your heart, how's your heart functioning without you even knowing it? For more information on what we do at Integrity Training Systems for a 6-month nutrition program with us or to meet with a personal trainer, take a look at Integrity Training Systems or give us a call at 636-299-2208. For gluten-free, dairy-free baked goods delivered to your door from my personal bakery, take a look at sophiesbakery.com. And for 100% grass-fed meat, take a look at fedfromthefarm.com.
Welcome back, everybody. John and Debbie Morris with Integrity Training Systems on Real Talk 93.3. We've been talking a lot about the flesh today and feeding the flesh and how that can come through the form of food. We talked about the secret weapon that Satan uses on the world is food itself. And you made a comment about something that Eric Thomas said earlier, but another thing that you recently posted about that he said is that you should fast to tell the flesh who is in control. And I like that. It's like, who is in control? Like I went through a phase years ago where I altered the way I drove home because every time I would drive home, I would drive past a specific gas station and I would stop and get something I shouldn't have. I would have candy. And so I literally had to change the way I drive. Now that sounds kind of crazy, right? Like, okay, he's going to drive an extra 3 minutes home because he can't drive past the gas station. Well, you know what? That's an admittance of having a problem, and I had to figure out a way around it. Okay. And that was what I figured out that I needed to do. And something that you recently also pushed this on your social media from TD Jakes is he says, you cannot allow how you feel to dictate how you respond. And so many people say, I don't feel like meal prepping. I don't feel like eating that way anymore. I don't feel like not being able to have something that allows me to enjoy myself. And if you're allowing that feeling to dictate what you actually consume and what the rest of your day or the rest of your week or the rest of your month looks like, you're going to perpetuate that it continues to happen and you're not going to get to be well. I don't feel like working out. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, 9 times out of 10, when I set myself up to work out, I don't actually feel like working out. I get told all the time by new clients, like, well, I just wish I had your motivation to work out. I'm like, oh, so you wish you were motivated to not work out at all? And they just kind of stare at you. I'm like, motivation is great. And there are times I can throw some headphones on and a song can hit the right way. And I'm like, all right, let's get it. But that's pretty rare. I do it because I know I need to do it. I do it for the health of myself. I do it for the health of my family. And I do it so that I can perform the call and purpose that's on my life. And I want to talk a little bit about this, and then I'm going to kind of turn this over to you, Debbie. But I talked a little bit in the beginning about, the points that Mr. Golden made about the temptations in the Bible. And he talks about the children of Israel and, 400 years out in the wilderness, right? And in the Bible, in Numbers 11, it says that the people cried out to Moses, okay? And they said, the rabble among them began to crave other food. And again, the Israelites started wailing. They're literally crying about this and said, if only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also, all of the cucumbers and melons and leeks and onions and garlic. But now we've lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna. So what they're saying is, if you don't know this story, I challenge you to go read this in a Bible. And if you don't have a Bible, Google this. This is Numbers 11. They were slaves. And so what they're saying is when we were slaves, we actually got things that tasted better than the sustenance we're getting to be well now. They're not talking about we actually got to eat and now we're starving. They're talking about that they had things that they liked the taste of, MSGs, cakes, pies, sodas, candies. They're talking about getting to have that stuff, but literally being slaves. They're not getting to live their lives. Like back when they were slaves, they weren't thinking about what they were eating at all. What they were thinking about is we don't want to be slaves anymore. We want out of this. This is what we do. We're slaves to our flesh. We're slaves to our food. We talk about feeling like crap. I don't want to have this disease anymore. I wish I could sleep better. I wish I didn't have arthritis. I wish I didn't hurt all the time. But we're staying in the slavery to the flesh because we want to consume those foods. You have to step outside of that and receive the manna that God has created for you. Receive the food that's going to fuel your body the appropriate way so that you can actually enjoy the life without bondage. And Deb, I want to just talk a little bit about that post that you made. And you talk about how what you do may not always feel immediately rewarding in the long game. So talk to us a little bit about when you're with your clients, like how do you relay that? Like, how do you help people to break that cycle of needing that immediate dopamine response of getting to have their glass of wine or their piece of cake?
I mean, typically I put them on a plan that sets them up to not need all of that.
Right.
You know, for the first 30 days, we go on an anti-inflammatory diet. We go on a low histamine approach, and we balance their brain. We balance their palate. They basically have a macro and micronutrient profile that really helps them to feel balanced. And after 2 weeks, they will say, I'm not craving sugar anymore. I'm truly not even hungry. I can't believe how hungry I used to be, and I'm really just not that hungry anymore. I know when it's time to eat, and I eat, and I'm satisfied. But the first dose of reality that comes in, the first wedding they go to, the first family member that comes to visit, the first birthday, whatever, you know, the first stressful event, the first gas station they drive by. I mean, whatever the circumstances, they give in. And it's reality. I mean, people are going to eat things. They're going to drink things. It would just be so false to assume that we're not going to have sugar or we're not going to have alcohol. I mean, yes, I might be the one person on the planet that doesn't do that because I get so sick.
Yeah, but everybody does. That's actually the problem. I had a client at one point that said, I wish I had Debbie's autoimmune condition so that I would eat better. And I looked her straight in the face and I said, you're sick right now eating like garbage. If you had Debbie's disease, you would die because you lack the discipline to do what she does.
But I know several people
so
that
many
have
people
autoimmune
walk around
disease
not
and they still
feeling
eat
well
bad.
and they
Right.
still eat bad because they can kind of survive it.
Yeah.
You know?
I also know really diligent, really intensely focused people that do not eat bad food.
Yes.
And they have one off meal a week and they look forward to that off meal. And I'm telling you, if you look at their life, like they have quality,
they're successful.
They have quality relationships. They get along with their kids great. Their kids are successful. And they also have successful businesses and they've earned the respect of their peers. I've witnessed this. I've seen the difference. And when you're listening to people like Jocko Willink or like Eric Thomas or like Andy Frisella and Ed Milet. I mean, they're all talking about it. I mean, they're basically saying, like, you can't eat that way. You can't drink that way all the time. These people are leading really large companies and they're really functioning at a very high level. And they've recognized, I mean, Jocko was leading the Navy SEALs. They're recognizing you cannot eat that way and perform at a high level.
Yeah, food is an addiction, and you can be addicted to doing something well. You know, okay, I call that driven. I don't necessarily call that addiction because addiction usually means that something has consumed you. I
think addiction is distraction,
and that's what I'm getting at. So people will be like, "Well, get addicted to something positive. Get addicted to the gym," but addiction means that you can't live without. And so the only thing you should be addicted to is the Lord. So what I'm saying is, food is an addiction. You know, I don't know many people addicted to heroin that are highly successful. And I'm not just talking about making money. There's plenty of people that make money and they're addicted to drugs. I mean, look at most of Hollywood, okay? But how is their life? How are their relationships? How are everything going on? It's not just about money. It's an overall call and purpose on your life that you should be pursuing. You know, addiction is going to prevent that.
At some point, you've taken your eye off the prize. At some point, you've taken your mind off the vision. At some point, your vision has gotten clouded. Something has fogged you. Something has made you lose your focus. Instead of going for the bad food, you need to go for the Bible. You need to go to your pastor. You need to go to your best friend. You need to go to your personal trainer. You need to go to your nutrition coach. You need to go to someone who is successful, who is strong. You know, no one's perfect, right? But you need to go to someone that can counsel you and coach you and guide you back to your vision, guide you back to your focus, guide you back to the prize, because you know, you've just distorted your vision. And so you can no longer see what you should be focusing on. Let someone help you regain that focus and you could regain your life back. I mean, in all areas, you could literally regain your life back. That is what we do at Integrity with the 6-month nutrition program or visiting with a personal trainer. Take a look at us at integritytrainingsystems.com or give us a call at 636-299-2208 for gluten-free, dairy-free baked goods delivered to your door from my personal bakery. Take a look at sophiesbakery.com. And for 100% grass-fed beef, the only meat that the Morris family will eat, take a look at fedfromthefarm.com. Thank you all so much for listening, and God bless you.